Well, I did a little brainstorming the other day with David Kay, and he had a pretty good idea. It's interesting to get somebody from outside that can actually come over here and stand here with you and give you some input that basically hasn't been looking at this and get some fresh input. I'd been staring at it for 2 days and didn't have a lot of perspective. But anyhow, he came up with the idea of changing the side panel design, which I'd always kind of wondered about, but I was trying to keep it looking as original as possible. But to be perfectly honest, I think what he came up with is probably a lot more functional and something I'd kind of toyed with, and it actually solved a couple of problems too. This is kind of my mock-up I put together. I still have a little bit of work to do on it, but I think you can probably kind of get the idea. What I did was I cut the side panel down and then created a recessed panel that recesses back 1.5 inches. And what that allowed me to do is to bury part of the remote control actually up under the gunnel. Now it's a little bit tight here, so I think I need to drop the bottom maybe another 1/4 inch. Really fighting clearances, as you can see, because right now there's the top of the foam, so if I drop it 1/4 inch it'll push the foam down a little bit, but I don't think that's a big deal. But anyhow, it got my clearance to where my throttle works. It's pretty close to the edge here, but this is the same throttle I've got on my Sea-Ray, and typically I actually end up holding it around there and not up here once I get it engaged. That way I can run the tilt and trim with my thumb when I've got my hand wrapped around it. So I think that worked out pretty good, and what that really did was gave me a little bit more clearance between here and the edge of my leg, and I think it's in pretty good shape where it'll actually work now. I've also finalized the gauge layout, which I showed you guys earlier. We've got the tack and speedo here, and then here's my other gauges, the various ones. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put the switches right up here on each side of the steering wheel, and I think that'll work out pretty good where you can see them and operate them, and it's pretty clean. I don't have to create any more panels or anything else. Radio, I think I've decided to go ahead and buy one with a remote that's wired or maybe even wireless. And they're pretty small, so I was thinking about mounting it here in a corner along the side, somewhere along over here, and actually putting the radio itself up under here somewhere where it's still accessible. It's something you'd have to kind of get down there to look for. I think that'll work really good. And the other, the XM receiver, I haven't still figured that one out, but I think it'll probably end up going down here somewhere, maybe even right in here. That way I can turn the radio on, control the volume, and adjust the XM receiver to whatever channel I want. So anyway, we're getting there. I think I'm going to mirror this on the back side also, put the same curve on it. And the reason being is that'll give me a good place to tuck skis back up underneath the seat. The way it's laid out right now, we can't do that. So I think that'll be an improvement. I also want to put a back panel across the back, and then I think that gives you, the person that's sitting in the back, gives them some place to actually put their feet to. See if I can get in here real quick so you can kind of get an idea. Kind of gives you an idea. It gives you some place to put your feet, so when you're taking off you can kind of brace yourself. And I think the ice chest will still fit in here. It'll be kind of tight, but it's going to be a very cozy boat and a great ride though. So hope everything's going good with you guys, and I'm going to try to get this mock up to the upholsterer today or tomorrow, and see if I can get some pricing on it. Talk to you soon. One other thing I forgot to point out, I know a couple of you guys had pointed out the shifter cables are pretty stiff, so the nice thing that this thing allows me to do is to actually take and drill a hole for my control cable wiring and run it straight through this little bulkhead here. And that also gives me the opportunity where the cables come out of the shifter, I think they'll angle right back in there, and I can drill holes for those too, so it goes through and it's pretty clean, gets those out of the way, and won't require me to make any funky cover plates or anything. One thing I do think is I think the upholstery will probably stop here, and I think I'll do this in carpet. And the reason for that is I think it'll blend in, because on the back side I'm going to have the upholstery coming down and then carpet running up the inside of the gunnel. So I think when you stand back, this will just kind of fade in, and I think it'll work a little bit better than trying to upholstery this whole pocket up in here. Anyhow, hope you guys are having a great evening.